I think we need to understand that the biotech community of today will not look like the same way in the next decade. Like 10 years ago, this biotech community did not look like today. I would say that emphasizing that we are always learning, always studying, always seeking for solutions that meet these extraordinary products that are getting us closer to a personalized medicine, that you can have these cell therapies, these gene cell therapies that are customized for you, David, for your things, for your DNA, for your problems. How can we in manufacturing envision the complexity and utilize innovation today that will answer those problems of tomorrow?
Welcome back to part 2 with Irina Ramos. We're continuing our conversation on continuous manufacturing implementation and moving on to the future of bioprocessing. How do you build a CMC roadmap that won't bite you later? And here is the big one. How should teams prepare for AI integration without losing the human expertise that makes great process development possible? Well, we'll cover all that and more. Let's jump back in. Are you juggling the complexities of CMC development while trying to enjoy the beauty of biotech? Have you ever wondered if there's a way to simplify bioprocessing? Welcome to the Smart Biotech Scientist podcast, where we're diving headfirst into the very challenges you face. We're breaking it down, demystifying the jargon, and giving you the keys to unlock your full potential. I'm your host, David Brulman, and I get it. With 15 plus years in the biotech industry, I face the same challenges you do. There's a way to simplify and streamline so you can remove complexity, you can skip trials and errors, deliver without delay your groundbreaking therapy to clinics and market, and still enjoy every single step. Do you want to learn how industry experts and I did it? Grab a cup of coffee and your favorite notebook and pen. Now is the time to take your bioprocessing game to the next level. Let's smarten up biotech.
With the concept of keeping things simple, what phase appropriate approach would you suggest? Like, what should absolutely be done in phase 1? What can wait until later? And what are the critical decisions, for instance, a startup founder has to make very early on in order to be fully compliant as they want to go perhaps at least for a hybrid approach or an intensified approach or so on?
There is an interesting exercise from the Nimble Consortium looking at scenarios. What if you use already approved product and change that fed batch into continuous? Other scenarios is let's use new early stage programs to feed into this continuous platform. And if they make it, now you have a commercial need to scale it up. They're both valid. I tend to, hearing from the community, to see that it's much harder to change the already approved program. The drivers are different. Maybe, I don't know, cost of goods manufacturing need to be it's a critical parameter. Maybe if you change it to continuous, you have an opportunity to lower costs. I don't know. But what I see is if the portfolio is large and you start early stage, and you try to implement that, it means that you have to show fed batch versus intensified perfusion or regular, more steady state perfusion. The perfusion wins. And if you are able to get that higher productivity, feeds into your cost of goods for upstream, and then downstream comes like a domino effect. And then if you attach capture, which I think it's the smart thing to do, because you're decreasing the volume, you're concentrating your feed, you might want to attach the low pH afterwards. So maybe you use the detergent ahead of the capture. So there's things that, oh, by the way, we have this part, why not adding a little a piece? And then you need to decide how do you control for the end, the concentration, the diafiltration, because our drug product colleagues, if it hasn't been obvious, I am on the drug substance more, but the drug product colleagues already have end-to-end solutions out there for fill finish, for dilution, for compounding. So when we think about all of these end-to-end, let's think about really end-to-end, from cell line selection all the way to DP vial or DP device for combination products.
Yeah, that's a good point. Let's think all the way end to end. And I think what I also hear in what you're saying, there's different approaches. You can start small and then you can also expand. It's not an all or nothing approach or one-time approach. It's a process.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Let's circle back to your story and more specifically to your time at AstraZeneca, because you led the technology transfer of the AstraZeneca COVID vaccine. So I'm curious about what you learned in this high pressure, fast paced environment. What were your experiences and your learnings?
That we work in a wonderful community of experts that dressed the shirt of a mission, and we did not care about how many hours we worked. We cared that we were going to save lives. At the end of the day, the technical part, which is complex, and we have a sort of a playbook, was important as a guidance, but it was the relationships, the conversations, the running the extra miles that really allowed us to envision a world that would be fully connected across all the continents, where we could manage raw materials, suppliers, and really in an orderly manner as much as possible with all the constraints we were living at that time with the single-use components, the raw materials, that we could work together to accelerate. So this is the overarching comment, obviously, as you deep dive into these very complex network that AstraZeneca built, and there are a couple of extraordinary colleagues that made that happen. You face the cultural ways of working constraints, and you need to really appeal to the mission of the effort. So regulatory agencies were completely available for back and forth communication. That in a normal situation, is very formal. You have to wait for weeks or months. And this situation, we almost had, I'm exaggerating, like on speed dial. We knew we could work with them. They would work with us because we had the same mission, which was to save people's lives. It was not just to file a product just for the sake of, some niche and then saving people, but it's a small group. This was everyone. And then we learned that the technical aspects that we had worked for a long time could be parallel tracked. So we had a lot of activities being developed in parallel at risk. Often you would have them in series, waiting for one to end, make sure it goes as expected, and then start the next one. Okay, we would start at risk, which means we don't wait to know if the other one works, like from filtrations to other unit operations development. And then we would just collate all of those efforts at the end. Of course, we cannot expect to do that in the regular world because there's money involved, there's time, other types of resources, and the world is not stopped to serve us the same way.
I'm now curious because the pandemic is over. You learned a lot. The industry changed. There's new ways of seeing things, approaching things. What are the things that we should keep today, or what are the things that we still need to implement to make drug development faster, better, more reliable?
One of the things is productivity factor. It's not a matter of if, but it's a matter of when we're going to have another pandemic. I hope I'm not alive by then, but there will be another pandemic. We were the bottleneck. Manufacturing was the bottleneck to get the product out. So from alternatives to, you remember probably the temperature that some of these vaccines needed to be shipped out in the world. And that's why they couldn't reach parts of the world that didn't have those means to keep it stable. So how do we find ways, and there are some smart solutions out there and still in small scale, that you could produce your vaccine in a bag, in a device. You could make it purified and administer it, and it's going to be safe. So what have we learned? We learned that we can take some risks without impacting product quality and safety, and certainly the patients. And those risks were very well mitigated and addressed with tools that we already had. We also learned that by doing things really fast, we were able to create templates and ways of working that now we know what we can continue doing it and what you need to back down because we don't have the same funding or the same resources. So it's almost like you stretch the balloon, and that balloon now it allows you more space, more knowledge, more understanding. And we also learn of things that did not work, but we learned in such a fast way. And also the regulators showed their culture, their purpose. So some of us don't look at them as, that police the same way. We look at them as they have a very important role, but they also want technologies to be implemented. They certainly want us to have less bottlenecks in manufacturing and better process capabilities and process control. So we have a much better communication two-way. So we leverage consortiums as well, but we leverage programs like the ETP, the Emerging Technologies Program with the FTA. But in Europe and in other continents, they have similar ways of, I want to know about your technology, and we want to know about their feedback on if we use these technologies for a future platform, completely decoupled from a.
Before we continue, Biotech founders, I want to talk directly to you. Do you know that feeling when an investor asks about your manufacturing strategy and you freeze? One wrong CMC decision can cost you $2 million and 18 plus months of delays. Yet many CEOs are flying blind on these critical decisions. That's why I created the 1-week CMC strategy assessment. In 1 week, you get a personalized assessment of your molecule and development stage. We identify critical gaps before they become million-dollar mistakes, plus a strategic roadmap for high-stakes investor meetings. One CEO told me, David took me from feeling powerless about our CMC roadmap to confidently pitching investors. An absolute game changer for time-pressed CEOs. Whether you are preparing for Series A, approaching IND filing, or facing scale-up challenges, this gives you confidence to ace investor and board conversations instead of surviving them. Ready to stop second-guessing your CMC strategy? Check the link in the show notes and secure your spot. Because your breakthrough therapy deserves a solid CMC strategy. Now, let's get back to our episode.
Product.
Now, speaking of learning fast and adapting fast, what also comes into our mind is AI. And we know that AI is not just the future, AI is the present, and manufacturing AI is increasingly part of bioprocessing conversations. How should we prepare our teams for AI integration? And what is the biggest mindset shift that teams need to make?
We can't trust the computer alone. I'm going to emphasize it again. This is not just press the button and it's going to give us the answer and we're going to believe it. AI is actually past as well. We've been using AI for years, but we just don't call it that way, or it hasn't been described that way. So when you think about machine learning, predictive models, computational capabilities, all of it is AI, isn't it? It's not you doing all this math on your own. So now that the buzzword is out there, okay, let's envision what it means for bioprocess. And then we demystify it. We have to demystify it in terms of application. Is it a process development tool, or is it a tool that will take us all the way to GMP? And that's where it has to be a very big distinction. Is it a tool that will help you predict things, or a tool that will give you just real-time information? Is it a tool that is very much linked to a product? Or is it more of a platform tool? At the end of the day, you still need the critical thinking human being with a critical eye that will match the math with the physics. And if that is not clear, then we're going to lose. We're going to run faster than we can. And I believe that's not going to happen. There's a lot of smart and really developed laboratories, both in academia and in the industry, where we're leveraging existing software, new software, modified versions of models, and connecting AI to continuous manufacturing. Can you envision a day or a world where you have your process feed to run 200 cycles in a chromatography column, and you know how those chromatograms should look like because you have your historical knowledge, and your operator, when he's in the floor and he's analyzing cycle number 80, he can predict through the model, the AI tools, that the cycle 80 looks more like cycle 150 from my historical data. I need to change my column in 48 hours. And they plan it. And instead of being reactive, they are proactive. So this is a very simple example to show it applies to also bioreactors, to potential contamination. And then you can save what hasn't been contaminated to filters. So what is the purpose of AI is as valuable as what is the problem you want to solve or what is the problem you want to avoid if it's more predictive. You still need to look at these teams and the newcomers from the university as individuals that need to understand the basics. They need to understand why we run things the way we do, because that's the input on the AI tools. And then they will understand the output and they will use it in a most meaningful way.
What are the most important skills the scientist listening needs to develop?
They need to understand the principles. And then we're still teaching that in school. And I also teach a class at the university, and we are dealing with using ChatGPT and Copilot and other AI tools for students to pass classes. I strongly recommend that you do not want to use tools to pass a class. You want to use tools to understand in less amount of time, to contextualize without, like people like me, going to a library and spending half an hour just to find a book on a chronological or alphabetical order. So you can use those tools to your disposal, not to pass the class, but to really fully understand it. And professors at the university are reshaping the way they are utilizing these tools so the students can be elevated to a different level. When they start the workforce, you are building your brand. Remember, I mentioned about trust and competency and commitment. If you are shallow on your understanding, but you had pretty good grades, that will not take you far. And you will be disappointed and frustrated. And that means your foundation will never be the same because you can't really reset and go back. So really focus on your foundation, have good mentors, partner with good colleagues that really want to understand the principles, because it's not an easy field. Engineering is not an easy field, and sometimes feels really frustrating. How am I going to get through these? Guess what? You will, because you're going to work hard. You're going to get a really good job, and then you'll be as excited as I am about changing the world one step at a time, right?
Before we wrap up, Irina, what burning question haven't I asked that you're eager to share with our biotech community?
Oh, that's a good question. I think we need to understand that the biotech community of today will not look like the same way in the next decade. Like 10 years ago, this biotech community did not look like today. I would say that emphasizing that we are always learning, always studying, always seeking for solutions that meet these extraordinary products that are getting us closer to a personalized medicine, that you can have these cell therapies, these gene cell therapies that are customized for you, David, for your things, for your DNA, for your problems. How can we in manufacturing envision the complexity and utilize innovation today that will answer those problems of tomorrow? So I don't know how to make this as a burning question, but how can we bring the new workforce with the existing workforce and really have a happy marriage with that creativity and innovation, and so they don't feel they have a ceiling, and people older and more experienced than me don't feel that how in the world we're going to incorporate all of these things when we are highly regulated and this is kind of working and I don't want to change. So how do we go about that? I think it's a continuous effort of goodwill and keeping the patients in mind.
This has been great, Irina. What is the most important takeaway from our conversation?
That for continuous manufacturing, one size does not fit all. And if you think it's too complex and too expensive and too extraordinary big idea or transformation, I think you should start with small steps and perhaps gather some colleagues to do some math on envision. The other thing is the workforce of today will not look like the workforce in a decade or two because of our AI tools. And how do we take the most out of it? There's different ways of doing it. And I think we have to be passionate about what we do. It has to make sense. We need to be driven by something that is bigger than ourselves. And often I need to zoom out give me perspective. So I remind my colleagues as I lead some of these efforts, why are we here? This is not just a gray laboratory. We're doing something absolutely transformative in some shape or form. Are you sure you're still focused on the right thing? So someone needs to do that once in a while. And I hope that came across from our conversation as well.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Irina, for coming on the show and sharing all your insights, your passion. Where can people get a hold of you?
Oh, you can find me on LinkedIn. It's the easiest way.
Excellent. So, Smart Biotech Scientist, I'll leave the link in the show notes. Please reach out to Irina. And once again, Irina, thank you so much. It has been a huge pleasure.
Thank you so much, David, for the opportunity.
There you have it. From continuous processing to AI readiness, Irina Ramos just gave us a masterclass in forward-thinking CMC leadership. If this episode helped you see your challenges differently, leave a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening from. It generally helps other biotech scientists like you find us. Thank you so much for joining us today, and remember, science may give you headaches, but biologics drug development should not. See you next time. I'm looking forward to seeing you around here again. All right, smart scientists. That's all for today on the Smart Biotech Scientist podcast. Thank you for tuning in and joining us on your journey to bioprocess mastery. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast platform. By doing so, we can empower more scientists like you. For additional bioprocessing tips, visit us at smartbiotechscientist.com. Stay tuned for more inspiring biotech insights in our next episode. Until then, let's continue to smarten up biotech.